It all began with a cryptic email. No press release. No media fanfare. Just a quiet, formal invitation sent to a select group of faculty and students at the NYU Stern School of Business. You are cordially invited to a special guest lecture hosted by the Future Global Leadership Forum. Speaker, Barron Trump. Venue, Paulson Auditorium, 4 p.m., Friday. At first, the email sparked confusion more than curiosity. Barron Trump? The youngest son of President Donald J. Trump? The same president who had just shocked the world by imposing a massive 245% tariff hike on Chinese imports, igniting a full-blown trade war with Beijing? Until now, Barron had remained a relatively quiet presence. Aside from a few public appearances with his father and mother, he'd shied away from political spotlight. Most Americans knew him only as the tall, soft-spoken teen with sharp eyes and an uncanny resemblance to his father in his youth. But that was all about to change. By Friday afternoon, word had spread like wildfire. NYU's massive Paulson Auditorium was overflowing with attendees, students, professors, business leaders, economists, and media personnel from across the globe. CNN had sent a crew. So had Fox, BBC, and even Al Jazeera. What was initially seen as a formality had turned into a global event. The room fell into a hush as the 6 feet 7 inches silhouette of 19-year-old Barron Trump emerged from backstage. Dressed in a tailored navy blue suit, no tie, with a confident but calm presence, he approached the podium. Flanked by the American flag and an NYU Stern banner, Barron didn't begin with greetings or pleasantries. He began with a statement. Good evening. My name is Barron Trump. I'm not here tonight because I'm the president's son. I'm here because I believe we are standing at the edge of a new era for America and the world. The room held its breath. My father's recent decision to impose a 245% tariff on Chinese imports has sent shockwaves through the global economy. I'm not here to defend it blindly. I'm here to explain it, contextualize it, and tell you what it means for your future. Whether you're an American entrepreneur, a Chinese exporter, or a student trying to navigate a world in flux. He paused, scanning the crowd. His tone was not fiery or provocative. It was deliberate, calm, and layered with understanding. But make no mistake, it was powerful. I've grown up around policy tables. I've listened to generals, economists, CEOs, and diplomats speak behind closed doors. And I've also listened to my father. He's not always polished. But if you want to understand his logic and what the tariff doctrine of 2025 is really about, you need to hear the full story. The massive LED screen behind him lit up with the title, The Tariffs. Why now? And just like that, Barron Trump, the once quiet first son, stepped into the spotlight not as a symbol but as a speaker, maybe even a visionary. He clicked to the next slide. A timeline showing America's trade deficits with China from 2000 to 2024. For over 2 decades, the U.S. has run a staggering trade deficit with China. In 2024, that deficit topped $639 billion. That's not just a number. That's millions of jobs, shuttered factories, and hollowed-out towns in the Rust Belt. He pointed to data showing entire industries, solar panels, semiconductors, steel, gradually offshored to Asia. While we were innovating, they were imitating and undercutting. While we were preaching open markets, they were building economic walls behind closed doors. There was a noticeable shift in the room. Students began to take notes. Economists whispered to one another. Was this kid seriously dissecting macroeconomic policy with such clarity? Yes. And he wasn't done. The screen behind Barron flickered again, this time showing rusted factories in Detroit, boarded-up shops in Ohio, and old headlines, thousands laid off as plant moves to Asia, textile towns turn ghost towns, and American manufacturing, a dying giant. Barron continued, his voice steady but full of intensity. We were sold the idea that globalization would lift all boats. But in reality, it lifted some yachts and sank millions of lifeboats. Let me ask you, how is it that America, the most innovative country on earth, became addicted to cheap imports and offshore dreams? He paused again and let that question hang. I'm not anti-China. In fact, I admire their discipline, their long-term planning. But I am pro-America, and being pro-America means having the courage to protect our sovereignty, our industries, and our workers. The audience murmured. Some nodded. Even those who disagreed couldn't deny the conviction in his tone. Barron then brought up the tariff doctrine of 2025 signed just a week ago by President Trump. It included a 245% tariff on select Chinese imports, including electronics, solar panels, and steel. A 65% subsidy boost for American manufacturers producing in strategic sectors. A new Made in America investment fund seeded with $300 billion in redirected trade revenue. Penalties on corporations outsourcing beyond a set threshold. Some call it protectionism. I call it preparation for a future where the U.S. is not dependent on foreign powers to build its infrastructure, power its grid, or secure its tech. If a country can't make its own chips, its own cars, or its own missiles, then it's not a superpower. It's a customer. Barron's words sent a ripple across the room. Suddenly, he wasn't just a teenager on stage. He sounded like a leader in the making. He shared a personal story next. One that caught everyone off guard. In 2022, I visited a town in Pennsylvania with my father. We met a man named Don Walters, a laid-off machinist. Don gave me a worn-out baseball cap with the words, "Bring it back." I asked him what it meant. He said, "Our jobs. Our pride. Our place in the world." I've kept that hat ever since. He reached into his briefcase and held it up. The cap looked old, faded, and frayed at the edges, but it was real. A powerful symbol. That man doesn't want pity. He wants opportunity. And these tariffs, despite what globalists say, are not about war. They're about rebalancing. They're about giving towns like Don's a second chance. A few students clapped. Then a few more. Then the applause grew. It wasn't wild or political, it was respectful. Earned. Barron, unfazed, transitioned into global reaction. He showed headlines from across the world. China retaliates, 180% tariff on U.S. agricultural imports. European Union demands trade talks with Trump administration. Wall Street wobbles, Main Street waits. We expected backlash. But let's be honest, if tariffs hurt America, why are so many other countries so angry about them? Because they know, for the first time in decades, we're playing offense. He smiled slightly. It was the kind of smile that said, I know something you don't. America has a $25 trillion economy. We are the largest consumer market in the world. That gives us leverage. And for the first time in decades, we're using it. The crowd was hanging on to every word. But here's the part the media won't tell you, this isn't just about the economy. It's about identity. About whether the 21st century belongs to a sovereign, self-reliant America or to a version of America that imports everything and stands for nothing. The screen behind him faded to black. Just two words appeared. The auditorium was silent as the words, "What comes next?" hung ominously on the screen behind Barron Trump. He took a slow sip of water, looked up, and leaned into the microphone. What comes next is not panic. It's not isolation. It's reconstruction. He clicked the clicker again. The screen lit up with the title. The Blueprint Made in America 2.0. Behind him appeared 5 pillars, bold, clean graphics that outlined the plan Barron believed would define America's future. Strategic reindustrialization. Smart tariffs, smart incentives. Youth-driven innovation. Tech security sovereignty. Global trade reset. Barron took his time explaining each one. 1. Strategic reindustrialization. We're not going back to the 1950s. We're going forward, but we're bringing our factories, our supply chains, and our control with us. He outlined how the administration was working to revitalize the American Midwest with clean energy factories, semiconductor fabs, electric vehicle plants, and defense manufacturing hubs, all fueled by both public and private investment. We're already seeing $90 billion in reshoring commitments since the tariff hike. That's not a coincidence. That's a reaction to strength. 2. Smart tariffs, smart incentives. Tariffs aren't blunt weapons. They're levers. You use them strategically to protect key sectors while incentivizing innovation at home. He announced that the administration would be releasing a detailed tariff intelligence map and open-source dashboard where Americans could see what sectors were targeted and why. We believe in transparency. If you're going to rebuild trust, the people deserve to see the playbook. 3. Youth-driven innovation. This one sparked the most surprise. The screen behind him showed photos of high school students in robotics clubs, college kids in biotech labs, and young coders at hackathons. If the 20th century was built by blue-collar grit, the 21st will be built by digital grit. Our generation isn't lazy. We're not lost. We're limitless, but we need a system that believes in us. Barron proposed a federal student startup fund, a pool of $10 billion to be distributed to student-run ventures in manufacturing, green tech, quantum computing, and AI hardware. You want to beat China? Don't just tax them, I'll build them. The crowd erupted in spontaneous applause. Even the NYU faculty, once skeptical of this talk, were now whispering to each other, this kid is for real. 4. Tech security sovereignty. Barron's tone shifted here. It was more serious, more urgent. Every day we rely on microchips built overseas, often in regions vulnerable to war or foreign influence. That's not just risky, it's suicidal. He laid out a stunning plan to create 4 chip fabrication megaplants across Texas, Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, backed by both tariff revenue and a newly announced Defense-Grade Supply Chain Act. America needs to make its own tech. Period. No more excuses. No more compromise. 5. Global trade reset. This last point brought the world into the room. We're not turning inward. We're just changing the rules. The old trade deals were based on a post-war world that no longer exists. It's time to reset country by country, partner by partner, based on fairness, transparency, and reciprocity. He promised that the U.S. would work with allies like India, Japan, Brazil, and Eastern European nations to build new trade corridors that didn't rely on the Chinese Communist Party. You don't build peace by appeasement. You build peace through partnership and power. As the final slide disappeared, Barron stepped out from behind the podium and spoke directly to the students. Some people say I'm too young to talk about this stuff. But I say this, if our generation doesn't take ownership now, we won't have anything left to inherit later. He paused, then added, My father raised me to be bold, but America raised me to believe. And I believe with every part of me that our best days aren't behind us. They're just beginning. A full standing ovation followed. For the first time in decades, a Trump didn't shock the world with a tweet, but with a vision. And the world was listening. Barron paused, letting the ovation die down. He was calm now, but the stakes were clear. His speech wasn't over yet, not by a long shot. He took a deep breath, and the next slide illuminated the stage, titled, The Global Ripple, What Happens Now? The screen showed images of the world's key stock exchanges, New York, Tokyo, London, and Shanghai, all marked with significant fluctuations over the past 2 weeks. A map of the world appeared, marking countries with the highest import-export dependence on China. Tariffs aren't just a national story. They're a global one. And China, well, they've been playing chess while we were playing checkers. Barron was now addressing the potential backlash from China, a question on everyone's mind. Some in the media have been quick to paint China as the victim here. But let's call it what it is. This is a fight for control, and America will never back down. He outlined what he called the China response cycle, a predictable pattern of threats, retaliation, and then diplomatic wrangling. First, China will retaliate. We've already seen it. Higher tariffs on our agricultural goods, including soybeans and pork. But that's just the beginning. A chart appeared on the screen showing how the tariffs affected China's agricultural industry, from lower global demand for Chinese crops to the new Chinese tariffs on U.S. products. The truth is, China is vulnerable. It's a massive economy, but it's also highly dependent on global trade. That's why the Chinese government controls so much of its industry. The moment we disrupt that flow, the entire system starts to strain. Barron leaned forward, his voice lowering. China's power is built on our consumption. They are the factory of the world, but we are the customers. If we start spending differently, they feel it. If we stop importing from them, it sends shockwaves. He wasn't just talking about tariffs anymore, he was talking about reshaping the global order. China knows it can't win a trade war with America. They might have cheap labor and large factories, but they lack something we have, innovation and trust. This tariff hike and the way we've handled the fight is about more than just trade. It's about ensuring America doesn't depend on anyone else, especially not a competitor, for its future. The ripple effects on the U.S. economy. The screen changed to show American farmers and factory workers, some happy, some nervous, all waiting for the effects of the tariff hike to settle. At first, the pain of tariffs will be felt by everyone. I won't sugarcoat that. Farmers, manufacturers, and even consumers will see higher prices on some goods. But the real question is, will we stay on the sidelines and let our jobs get shipped overseas, or will we fight for the future? Barron spoke about how the U.S. government had already laid out countermeasures to protect the domestic economy. A $15 billion farmers support program to mitigate losses. A $50 billion national investment fund designed to help businesses pivot and adapt to the changing landscape. A temporary consumer protection bill to limit price hikes on essential goods. We're building an ecosystem of support for American workers from the fields to the factories to the tech labs. This isn't just about slapping on tariffs, it's about building a new economic foundation. He also reassured the audience about the role of U.S. citizens in this new strategy. I'm asking you to believe in America. Believe in your neighbors. We're going to see some tough days ahead, but we will be the generation that built the future. The crowd was hanging on every word. Global allies, a new world order. Barron wasn't just looking at China. He was looking at the world. America will lead this shift, but we won't do it alone. We need our allies, and we need to build new partnerships. Images of world leaders flashed across the screen. The UK, Germany, Japan, and India were all highlighted as potential trading partners for America's next chapter. The message was clear: America needed to diversify its global relationships. We will no longer rely on one country. We will create a new global order where fairness and mutual respect are the foundation of trade. Barron showed how the U.S.-India Free Trade Agreement, which was still in the works, could shift the balance. It promised to create a framework for the future, a future where America was not bound by the whims of any one nation. America isn't just about economic dominance. It's about creating alliances that can withstand the pressures of this new world. The only way to do that is by being transparent, honest, and firm about our goals. The role of technology in global trade. The final part of Barron's speech focused on technology, specifically how the next stage of trade wars would involve the digital realm. We are in the middle of a technological renaissance. From AI to 5G to quantum computing, America is leading the way. But if we're going to stay ahead, we have to secure our tech. He spoke passionately about the need for a secure, sovereign digital infrastructure. The future of America's tech industry, he said, would rest not just on innovation, but on a fortified digital border that protected American intellectual property, infrastructure, and data from foreign interference. The digital age has arrived, but America will define it. The final part of Barron Trump's speech was about legacy, not just his own, but that of an entire nation in transition. He walked slowly across the stage, his gaze sweeping over the young faces in the room. He had just explained the economic landscape, the politics, and the global shifts. But now it was time for the most important part of the talk. In the end, it's not about what we inherit, it's about what we leave behind. He paused, letting the words settle into the minds of everyone in the auditorium. The power of leadership. Barron spoke directly about the role of leadership not just in politics, but in the hands of every individual, every entrepreneur, every creator in the room. We're living in a time where leadership isn't just about managing crises. It's about shaping the future. And as your generation steps into positions of power, the question I want you to ask is, what kind of America do you want to leave behind? He talked about how the legacy of his father, Donald Trump, was often misunderstood by the media. While some focused on the controversy, Barron emphasized the results. My father was clear from the start. It's not just about getting to the top, it's about bringing everyone up with you. It's about building something bigger than yourself. That's the America I believe in. The one we're creating right now. The call to action. With the world watching and the crowd hanging on his every word, Barron delivered his final message. It wasn't a political plea. It wasn't about winning a war or gaining votes. It was about action. We are at a crossroads. Right now, we have a choice. We can follow the old ways, keep doing what we've always done, watching as other nations surge ahead. Or we can change the game. We can be the innovators, the builders, the leaders of the next century. He clicked to the last slide, which read, America, not just a place. A movement. I'm not asking you to follow me. I'm asking you to join us. This is about more than tariffs. This is about the kind of future we want to live in, a future where America isn't just the most powerful nation in the world. It's the most respected. It's the most innovative. And it's the most trusted. Barron's eyes lit up with determination. And to anyone who thinks we can't do it, let me remind you, the only way you fail is if you give up. And giving up is not an option. With that, Barron Trump left the podium. For a moment, the room was frozen in silence. Then the applause started. Slow at first, then louder, until the sound of clapping echoed throughout the auditorium. But Barron wasn't listening to the applause. He had already turned toward the exit, his next move already taking shape in his mind. In the weeks that followed, Barron's speech was discussed around the world. The implications were huge, but even more powerful was the way he spoke, with clarity, confidence, and a vision that seemed both possible and necessary. The tariff hike and the trade war with China were far from over, but Barron had managed to shift the narrative. He had reframed the discussion from punitive measures to a national project. and America was starting to listen. By the time the next phase of the tariff plan was unveiled, it wasn't just about taxes on imports, it was about reshaping America's economic future. Corporations and small businesses alike began to look at the Made in America vision with renewed interest, not just as a policy but as a movement. Barron's influence grew as he continued to advocate for innovation, leadership, and global partnerships. He became a central figure in the U.S. economic renaissance, helping craft policies, meeting with global leaders, and working alongside American entrepreneurs to bring new technologies and industries to life. He had shaken the world, and now he was determined to lead it. In the weeks that followed, Barron's speech was discussed around the world. The implications were huge, but even more powerful was the way he spoke, with clarity, confidence, and a vision that seemed both possible and necessary. The tariff hike and the trade war with China were far from over, but Barron had managed to shift the narrative. He had reframed the discussion from punitive measures to a national project. And America was starting to listen. By the time the next phase of the tariff plan was unveiled, it wasn't just about taxes on imports, it was about reshaping America's economic future. Corporations and small businesses alike began to look at the Made in America vision with renewed interest, not just as a policy but as a movement. Barron's influence grew as he continued to advocate for innovation, leadership, and global partnerships. He became a central figure in the U.S. economic renaissance, helping craft policies, meeting with global leaders, and working alongside American entrepreneurs to bring new technologies and industries to life. He had shaken the world, and now he was determined to lead it.